practice titled Overview of Sustainability and ESG and Business Case for Sustainability and ESG. Let's welcome Mr. Farid.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I was afraid, I was the first one actually here at 7 o'clock in the morning and nobody was there. So I thought that maybe nobody was really interested in actually looking into my speech. But thank you for being here. My name is Farid. I am a trainer as well as consultant. At least for the past few years, what we've done is basically we've actually looked into some of the sustainability trainings as well as consultancy, and both for SMEs as well as public listed companies. So now, what I will do, at least for about an hour or so, just lay down a little bit of what some of the best practices that we have, a little bit of foundation, if you will, and we'll probably have a Q&A session before 10:15 in the morning. Is that okay? All right. Okay, now, this is what my topic is. Basically, it's an introduction and importance of sustainability. So, what we have, some of the things that why do we need a sustainability agenda? Now, basically, this sustainability agenda has actually been practiced quite thoroughly by the public listed company, but the SMEs were still starting. So where do we start? There's a lot of confusion in terms of how do we start sustainability at SMEs, as well as looking how is the relationship between SMEs, the public listed companies, the multinational companies, and also the governments. So what I'll do is, at least for the past 1 hour, for the next 1 hour, is actually just to lay down certain foundation. So one of the things that we need to actually have a look is that sustainability started with this. Basically, keeping our planet healthy. So if you look into the planet, you will see the blue line until the blue hue. This is where the oxygen actually can actually be in our planet, and this is where we can live. But at least for the past 100 years or so, we've been filling it with carbon dioxide. And you know this, and this is why we need to actually look into sustainability, because the capacity of carbon dioxide that we pump from the ground of the planet, we actually release it into the environment, and it's actually warming the planet. And at least for the past few years, we've been seeing a lot of climate change on our planet. This year, basically, at least for last week, I actually read, there was a report by United Nations to say that basically we have actually broken about 1,000 over records in 2024 with regards to the planet warming. Now, it's basically a lot warmer in 2024 compared to 2023. And we thought that 2023 is the warmest ever in the century, right? But I got news for you. If we don't do anything, this is going to get worse in 2025, because the capacity and the intensity of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is going to be a lot more, unless we do something about it, right? So everybody agrees. Scientists all over the world basically agree that the only ones that can actually do something about the planet warming is the companies, the organization, business people like you folks, right? Because the governments, each and every government, basically they're off track. They can't do anything about it. I mean, they're slow in terms of policies. I mean, in such case, basically, we can't wait for the governments, and businesses can't wait for the governments as well. We have to do something. So this is why we're here, to actually look in how we can actually do it and actually keep our business to be sustainable, at the same time, make profits. Well, at the same time as well, to take care of our people, our employees, our communities. That's why we are here. So now, if you look at it, early 1900, there's around about 2 billion people. Now, as of 2023, November 2023, officially the world has around about 8 billion people, right? And for every 10 to around about 15 years, we increase another billion. So by 2036, we expect that at least the population of Earth will be around about 9 billion, and by 2050, we have around about 10 billion people. And with more people on the planet, basically a lot of us breathe, right? Everybody breathes. And basically we actually consume as well fossil fuel. And we actually release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And news is basically we have got a lot more things to do to actually reduce our carbon emission. So now, as we consume our natural resources, we are actually depleting our resources as well. And if you look at it, the words that they actually use to actually consume and the amount of capacity that the earth can actually produce or just replenish whatever the consumption that we have, it's basically misaligned. We are consuming a lot more compared to what the earth is able to actually replenish. So this thing, the gap is called an overshoot. The overshoot for Malaysia is on the it's the 1st of August for every year. What it means is that if we start our year from year zero, from day zero until 365 days, we will actually consume everything on earth, assuming that everybody actually takes the behaviors or consumption of Malaysian, we will actually consume everything on earth by the 1st of August. Meaning the rest, the 2nd of August until the 31st of December, we don't have any more resources, right? So that is what it means actually. So that is currently getting a lot closer to January, right? So that's the global consumption habits of the world, not Malaysia alone. Malaysia is actually even quicker. We are on the 16th of May, meaning that if 8 billion people follow the consumption habits of Malaysians, we will actually consume everything on earth by the 16th of May. It's even worse, right? So the country that actually consumed the least in anywhere in the world is Jamaica. I think they are around about 21st of December, right? So that's what it means by overshoot. But if you are Qataris, right? The Qatar people actually consume resources, and they calculated this every year. They calculate every population on different countries. If you are Qataris, then you consume resources, and everybody actually follow the Qataris ways of actually consuming thing. We will actually deplete all the world's resources by January. So it's even worse, right? So it depends. Now, if you look into the consumption habits, how we actually consume, it is called our carbon footprint. What we actually release into the world's atmosphere. So this is what it means by overshoot. Now, if you look at the way that the whole world is actually consuming, this is why we need to actually reduce our carbon footprint. So we have to look into how we are actually looking into controlling the resources consumption. But at the same time, we have to look at the technology being used. Now, the extraction technology, that you extract minerals, you extract oil from the earth, basically, these are some of the technologies which is hastening the world consumption of things. But at the same time, if you look into technology, these are also the technology that can actually help human race. So things like solar panels, things like EV, as companies actually utilize more of these renewable technologies, some of the EV cars, for example, you are actually reducing your carbon footprint. So this is where we need to actually look into how companies can contribute in terms of reducing our carbon footprint. Now, we in Malaysia, we have the public listed company already it's mandatory for them to actually do a sustainability report, which they need to actually produce and send it over to Bursa. But for SMEs, we do not have that yet. But why is it that it's important for the SMEs to actually look into the sustainability, apart from actually reducing our carbon footprint? So this is where this 1 hour workshop, if you will, is going to actually tell you why you need to go into sustainability, right? So now, we've seen that because of the carbon intensity in the world, we've started to see a lot of climate changes. And a lot of it basically is uncontrollable. At least for the past few years, right? Remember the downpour that we had in the Klang Valley, right? My area in Shah Alam, basically we were an island for at least 1 week. We can't go anywhere. Okay? I had a brother-in-law who actually went for an event, somebody's wedding, and couldn't go back until 3 days after that. So basically, we find that those downpours are actually getting worse now. Last few months, if you remember, that Dubai had this downpour. We call it a rain bomb. The rain bomb is basically, it's no longer a rainfall, it's a rain bomb because of the climate change. The clouds now has the capacity to actually take in a lot more moisture. So whenever it rains, it pours, and basically it's like a bomb. It could be like only about an hour, but basically you have all the flooding area getting stuck in KL is like a normal thing now if you actually have rain bombs. But the worst thing that has happened, at least for the past couple of months, is Dubai. You've seen that, right? In the airports. I mean, the airports is totally flooded. And you find that hurricanes in the US especially, and the tornadoes. The last count this year, they already have incurred at least about 136 tornadoes, both big and small, right? So it's going to be a lot more. And you find that as well, that in Australia, for example, you have, and California, you have forest fires every year. Now it's become a sort of like a normal occurrence that you have this forest fire. So these are some of the things that is already happening. You find that ice sheets is also melting in the Antarctics. Couple of months ago, one ice sheet, which actually broke off from Antarctic, is as big as 4 times the city of Manhattan, right? The city of Manhattan in the US. Now, why is it's important to actually be acknowledged of the ice sheet breaking off? Because ice sheet, both in the Arctic and the Antarctic, right, is the thing that actually reflects the sun rays into the atmosphere. Now, with less ice sheets, basically the planet gets warmer. And the thing is, it actually does not warm, we don't feel it that much because it actually goes into the ocean. Then when the ocean gets warmer, and you find that there's a lot of news now happening saying that the ocean is warmer. The thing is, when you get ocean which is hot or warm, right, a lot of things inside the ocean dies. And this includes our food chain, our fish. If you remember, last couple of years, we had this National Geographic series that actually shows people actually catching crabs, you know, in the Northern Sea, right? At least for the past 3 years, we don't have that from National Geographic anymore. You know why? Because all the crabs is dead. This is the food system, right? Because at least for the past 3 years, National Geographic couldn't actually have film any documentary about those people catching crabs because the crabs are no more. What happened was the ocean has started to warm up, and the metabolism of the crabs has actually increased, so they were looking for food system, right? Which is unavailable. Previously, basically, it was colder, so crab being something which actually reacts to the environment with it, so the metabolism is lower, so they eat less. But when it gets warmer, then basically the metabolism goes higher. They were trying to find food, and the food was not enough. Basically, they die. So this is happening to our fishes, to our food system as well. So that is going to affect the way we actually eat things. I mean, now, you see, ikan kembung, ikan sardines, all these things is getting a lot more expensive compared to, when we were younger. So this is what's happening in the world at the moment. So the climate change has affected the cost of our food, right? So, and if you see that last couple of years, 2 years ago, somebody was mentioning to me, we have this, the 9 planetary boundaries. Now, these 9 planetary boundaries was actually espoused a couple of years ago. What it says is basically, you have these 9 different areas, and if you actually breach the safe zone, basically, it will actually quicken the other things that actually affect the planetary boundaries. So now, we already have got 6 areas whereby the planetary boundaries has already been exceeded. We only have 3 more. Now, if we have 3 of this basically exceeded, then you have a catastrophe. So you find that basically this are happening very quickly. And there's no way governments is actually doing it, because some governments are actually taking their own sweet time. Some of the bigger governments like the US, the China, India, these are the countries that actually puts out a lot of this carbon emission, and we can't do much about it unless we look into the scientists actually said that if you are actually looking at companies are the only big enough and pervasive enough that can actually reverse the climate change. And how do we do that with regards to actually getting our, we want to maintain our profitability, we want to take care of the planet, but at the same time, we also want to take care of our people. So this is the tricky part, because nobody can really actually take this away, and there's a lot of things that we need to understand. On top of that, basically, there's a different terminologies that we need actually to put in. So it is a very, very big task. So if you look at it, basically the population has increased, at least for the past 50 odd years since 1950. Carbon dioxide has increased. We also have the freshwater use is also increasing. The water table, if you notice that some of the water tables in some of the regions have actually gone down. We are lucky enough that we stay in an area in Malaysia, this region at least, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, that we have enough rain, right? But so some of the countries, probably in the desert area, the water table are basically negligent. I think, at least for the past few years, they were saying that some of the cities have no more water. South Africa, one of it. Basically, they were saying that, I have to check again, but South Africa is one of the countries which has a severe crisis in water, right? So we don't want that to happen to us. We have areas, tropical forests being deforested. Of course, Malaysia has done quite well, and Indonesia as well. At least for the past couple of years, we were commended by United Nations that we have actually halted deforestation, not halted totally, but basically we have actually slowed down the deforestation, the land use, because we've been a little bit more responsible in terms of opening up our plantation. So we also have marine fish capture. I've mentioned this about the crab, taking crab from National Geographic documentary. But another one basically is methane. Methane which is released from fertilizer. Now, the use of fertilizer basically is an oil and gas derivative. When we actually use that in the vast swath of plantation that we have, we also release methane. And methane is 30 times, 28 to 30 times more potent compared to carbon dioxide, right? So that is something that we need to actually look. The best way to do it basically is to compost everything and basically use it as our bio-fertilizer, right? So so that's what we are actually happening. So it's a lot of doom and gloom that we're actually looking, but what do we do about it, right? So in order for, I promise you, there'll be something that we can actually do something about it, at least for those people on here, because the idea of the whole thing is, where do we start? How do we start and how do we contribute? And we have clarity in terms of moving forward. So in doing so, basically, we need to understand there's 3 areas that we need to actually look into. Basically, this is what we call the triple bottom line. Now, in 1987, the Brundtland Commission basically mentioned this. Of course, Gro Harlem Brundtland was the president of the UN Commission during that time. She mentioned that basically the idea of sustainability is, and this is the definition that everyone basically should know when you're actually trying to do sustainability, is meeting the needs of the present generation, but at the same time, without compromising the ability of the future generation to flourish, right? So this has been actually utilized quite well. There are a few other definitions as well. One of ones that I actually use, basically, to flourish forever. Right? I can't remember who actually quoted that. Basically, we want to actually do, when we actually talk about sustainability, that everything flourishes. And basically, this is some of the other definitions that I have actually put in. I mentioned about Gro Harlem Brundtland. There is also by David Rubin, which actually mentioned sustainability imperative. And this was done in 2010. In 2010, people are beginning to look at there is an urgent need for everyone to look into sustainability. So it's an imperative, it's an emergency, right? It's an urgency for us to actually look at it. Only that Malaysia, we really have started, at least for the last 5 years or 6 years, but we need to actually raise because we have a deadline of 2030 to meet and to cut our carbon emission to at least half of what we used to be. I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. That's the urgency that we need to have a look at. And the other one is basically the quote done by Michael Porter, who looks at what is sustainability. Sustainability is about sharing, or sharing of values, right? When you actually share values, do we share the profits? Of course not. But we need to share the benefits of we actually do the sustainability. And how do we do that, right? So if you look at it, there is a whole soup of terminology. I think yesterday our Indonesian panel mentioned about the soup of terminology that actually confuses everybody. We have GRI lah, we have ESG lah, we got green procurement lah, we got carbon footprint. So this thing actually confuses a lot of people. So when I first started out this thing, I had to actually grapple with this one. But don't worry, basically, it's sort of like we have to actually make it simplified, right? So basically, the 3 things that we need to actually look into are this. We need to look into the environment, the social, as well as looking at the economics of things. So you can call it 3 E's, you can call it 3 P's, you can call it whatever. There's few things that we actually have put it. So I've listed down, basically, if you look at sustainability, you look at environmental, you look at social, and the economic aspects, and also the governance aspect. So basically, these are the only 3 things. They can be termed differently. Right? So that's the first start you need to actually look, but you have to bear in mind there are 3 things that we need to actually have a look. So basically, these are the triple bottom line. You look at environment, social, and economics part, and to To look into the company sustainability, you're looking at the profitability of a company. You have to look into the profitability of a company. And why you need to actually look at it, how do you use sustainability to actually increase your profit? Which we will actually go towards the end of this particular talk, right? So at the same time, we need to actually take care of the planet. Why we need to take care of the planet? Again, we are part of the planet. We are basically, as a business people, are basically subsidiaries of the planet, right? At the same time, we also need to take care of the people. The people are the ones that actually give value to the company and the environment, as well as the community as a whole. So we need to take care of them as well, right? So this is the, if you look into asset management, it is also the thing. Financial people actually love this kind of terminology. It makes a lot more sense for them. But what it means is basically we have a nested interdependency. Now, we have the environment. Now, with the environment, if the environment is basically taken care of, then society can flourish. Society can flourish. Now, if society can flourish, then only business can flourish, right? So that's what it basically means. Now, if you just take care of the business, but you don't take care of the people, and you don't take care of the environment, and the environment burns, so does society, and so does business, right? So basically, what we need to actually look now is what can the business do to actually take care both the profitability, what we can actually do to actually take care of society, and what we can do to actually do the environment part. Now, the difficult part of this one is that every one of you that actually runs a business has always been taught that the sole purpose of actually running a business is to make profits, correct? We were never taught on how to make profit, take care of society, and take care of environment. That's the problem. So running a business is always about shareholder value. All right? So that is the difficult part. So now the idea is basically what can you do if, let's say, once you run a business, you want to take care of the society and you want to take care of the environment so it doesn't burn, so you want to have a quality of life. The world that we want is basically it runs in harmony. Right? It runs in harmony. This is what we are actually aspiring to do when we talk about SMEs being sustainable. Right? So we're actually doing a lot more. Right? So there is a business case to do this. Right? Why you guys need to actually look into sustainability. Right? So the business case is that previously, 1970, when Milton Friedman came up with the term, he wrote it down in New York Times, and suddenly it sort of like clicks with all the business people, and basically they say that, okay, running a business is about shareholder value. Nothing actually ever matters. Nobody says about employees, nobody says about environment, right? So that is the old business model. Now we have to actually look into the stakeholder value. Now, the stakeholder value is a little bit more complicated. Not only you have to look into the shareholder value, you have to look into the employees' value as well. And also take care of the environment, the community surrounded. Now, the good thing about this is that most of the global community now says that basically Milton Friedman's quote is already outdated. We have to look into the stakeholder value. But how do we lead? How do we lead, as for SMEs, to go into the stakeholder value proposition that can actually sustain our business, but at the same time be good for the planet and be good for the society, right? So now the problem with that is that basically we have top barriers to sustainability. Now the top barriers of sustainability are this. Basically, there's a lack of investment, right? And these are moving ahead. This is one of the global thing that people are actually talking about, is moving the money away towards people who actually embrace sustainability. Now, there's a reason. That's one of the reasons that you need to actually look into. People are looking into taking away from money from those who invested in high-emitting, high-polluting industries, right? So last year in COP28, there was a landmark sort of like a statement done saying that it's time for us to transition from fossil fuel. Meaning now, banks are not now looking to reduce the oil and gas sector, the fossil fuel, the coal burning industries into other industries that actually embrace sustainability. So a reason they actually to go into sustainability, right? This is the previous one. It's going to be happening again in this year's COP29. So, and the year forward moving towards 2030, right? And at the same time, there is a lack of understanding on how do you actually take sustainability agenda and tell it in a succinct way that people actually understand where they are coming from, right? So there is a need to do capacity building, right? So this is what I've been doing with a lot of organizations. So at the same time, we need more people to actually do that, right? We need advocates, not only at the trainer level, but also the internal advocates within your organization. Right? So the third part basically is there's too much focus on profitability. Now, I'll tell you a lot of examples that the companies, the organizations I've done, is basically the sustainability team is actually given to a low-level executive, right? Because sustainability theme or function is a requirement, but it's not something which is major that the top decision makers wants to actually take into account. So they give it to somebody who's low level who cannot make any decision, right? So that's the problem. When you actually do that, basically you're just looking into profitability, business as usual, and basically putting some sort of statement that saying that, okay, you're trying to reduce your energy level by putting one solar panel. Right? Whereas basically the rest is business as usual, is still polluting. So basically there's still a lot of focus on what matters to make profit. Right? So this is not the way that you want to actually do that. Right? So the lack of budget is another one. Right? The lack of budget, you don't allocate in terms of some of the things that you need to do, at least minimally basically to do capacity building for your internal staff. Right? So the lack of budget allocation. And the last one is basically lack of regulatory policies or incentives to do this. Now, I think this platform is the best way that you can actually look into what are the policies. You are starting to compare what is happening in Indonesia, what is happening in Malaysia, what is happening in Thailand, what is happening in Hong Kong. So those are the policies that countries all over the world are beginning to put in place. Right? So there will be a lot more policies coming in, which is basically emphasizing the sustainability, right? So we have to be prepared on that as well, right? So moving forward, on top of that, basically, board of directors are not trained in ESG. So if you ask them, mostly, they don't know where to actually start. Right? The easiest way to start basically is to look into your human resource, right? Because that's part of it. And the simple things like switch off your lights before you leave the room. Those are the things that you can actually put it as part of your ESG initiative, at least initially, right? As you grow further, then basically you need to actually do that. So there's a survey that actually says that if you look into some of the board of directors' experience in environment especially, right? And we saw that yesterday as well when you actually, I think Encik Ritaudin actually made the survey that a lot of people are still confused in terms of how do you do measurement on environment. So this is basically this is a combination of the understanding of what environment measurement is and what to do with it. Basically ESG at the E part, the boards are incompetent for this, right? So the other part is basically social part. On the social part, we're looking at employees. At least minimally, you actually have to look at employees. So in Malaysia, we're still okay because I think because a lot of us basically have the labor laws, we have HR policies that we can actually use. So when we do a survey on that one, we find that S tends to be a little bit higher, right? So there are some expertise in it. But as far as the G is concerned, yeah, public listed company in terms of G, they're very strong, right? Because they have started in corporate governance years ago. So as far as G is concerned, it's okay. But as for SMEs, we don't know whether some of them are good, some of them are not, right? So what we need to actually look at it, basically, who are the board of directors? Who are the decision makers? Who are the top management? So in a survey done by Bloomberg, basically it's only about 13% of people who are basically switched on with ESG concepts, right? So definitely there is a need for training, especially at the top level for sustainability, right? So, okay, so if you look at Malaysia, right? This is a survey done last year. And if you look at Malaysia, basically there's a disproportionate level of ESG readiness and competencies, right? So even at the public listed companies, basically there are people who are very good at it. Some people are basically intermediate. Some people are just couldn't be bothered, right? So there's proportionate. Those are the public listed company. Those are people who are already mandatory that they need to actually come up with a report to Bursa. But as for the SMEs, we don't have that thing yet. But we need to actually start somewhere. And this is where we need to actually look at your readiness level. The readiness level is important. This is where the IESG, like yesterday in Chapter 1000 was saying, that you need to actually assess yourself to know where to start, right? So this is the part. Now, there is a lack of expertise in ESG. I think this is basically being addressed. Some people are now quite trained. We actually have run a certification program, and people who are actually certified, they know the concepts, they know the principles, right? Look for these people, right? Complexity in reporting and sustainability. This is still something which is, to us, basically, it's basically in state of flux, right? So there are things happening at Bank Negara that is happening that requires a little bit more reporting on the financial that actually related to the climate change and other. But generally, there are guidelines that actually being put by Bursa for public listed company. For SMEs, basically you can use the CMM SEDG, Simplified ESG Disclosure Guide, as a start that you can actually use to actually do your reporting, right? Start with that first, right? So potential conflict between short-term and long-term. Now, these are the things that I mentioned. Short-term is always looking at profitability, especially if you are actually reporting to someone that requires every quarterly, you must make profit and all this. When you actually do that, basically, there is a tendency for you to focus solely on profit and not looking into how you can actually be sustainable in the long run. So that is sort of like that if you make profit, nobody will blame you. But if you actually invest in something that actually be more sustainable for a technology that is sustainable, but you don't actually see profit for the next 3 years, the shareholders will blame you. So basically, those are the things that probably are grappling with a lot of companies now. Insufficient investable universe, a lot of things are actually there's a lot of money now flying around looking for sustainable companies, especially those overseas. So I won't get into too much on this one. But there's also a growing pressure to manage transition risk, right? Because when you actually transition from shareholder to some of the sustainable thing, like I mentioned, the investment may be expensive, the capital part, basically, to look into, power factors, you look at solar panels, you're looking at more green buildings, those kind of stuff. So basically, those are some of the risks that companies are actually trying to manage. But you need to actually have a look at what are the risks and identify those risks, right? So, and the other part is basically, if you look at it, when people don't understand what is sustainability, they ask an executive to actually look into it. basically, you find that they are basically overworked. They feel that they are overworked. I have to do all these things, right? You have to manage profitability, you have to manage your KPIs, you have to manage your risk. At the same time, you have to now look into sustainability where there is no clear guideline in terms of how you're going to do that. So people are basically stressed out. So you have all these things, and you put in sustainability on top of that, people are not going to be very happy, right? So they are just putting the sustainability statement just for the sake to meet the regulation criteria. That's it. Now, how do we actually manage this? How do we actually manage this? Now, basically, the best way to actually look in it, right, is to look into sustainable strategies that encapsulate, and sustainability encapsulate all these processes. So basically, you're looking at some of the process improvement that use sustainability strategies, right? So look at it as process improvements rather than a separate function altogether, right? And on top of that, you need to have capacity building, training lah, right? You need to understand where are the areas that you need to look into, right? Don't worry, by the way, all the slides are available in your program material. You can actually download that. We're actually giving everything kat situ. So don't have to actually, just dengar saja lah. Right? Later on, we'll have a question and answers. All right? Okay, now, you get a little bit more confused. Where do we start? With the 17 SDGs, right? 17 SDGs. Now, the easier way to actually look at it, again, the triple bottom line, you can actually dissect this as these three areas, right? One is the environment part, where you have 6 areas of the SDGs. Yeah? Those are the ones, right? You can actually refer that. Then you have the employee and well-being, employee welfare, goals, and well-being, which is another 6 areas. And 5 areas on communities, cities, society, governance areas, right? There are 5 areas. So we dissect this one by one, right? So now, when you actually start looking into drivers of sustainability, right? Normally, you find companies where the founders are passionate about sustainability. They want to save the planet, right? One case example, if you look at those who have been to Body Shop, right? The late Anita Broderick, right? Well, she was so passionate about it, and she started Body Shop because she didn't want to have waste from food. So she turned all these things into creams that you can actually use, and it was very, very successful. Now, I used to remember when I was younger, right? I bought this banana peel cream, and then started putting on my face because I want to have flawless skin. So basically, now that was basically to impress my girlfriend. Then now she's my wife. Now she doesn't bother me actually bother me anymore in terms of actually putting the banana peels. The only thing that I use the banana peel is to put in compost. I don't think she'll be very happy if I put compost on my face. Now, so basically those are things that they actually have. Founder's personal passion, right? Ben and Jerry, if you know the ice cream brand, I don't think Malaysia ada kot. But Ben and Jerry is another passionate founder that actually look into it. Patagonia, the outdoor jacket clothing, right? So those are the passion of founders that actually, when they started of this company, they wanted to save the planet, right? So the other part is basically when you have public relation crisis. This is the first wave, right? So a lot of people went into this crisis mode because suddenly your client asks you to be assessed in a sustainability standard. For example, EcoVadis, example, right? You don't know what is EcoVadis in the first place. Well, it's a sustainability standard. I had a client doing that. Now suddenly they want to go into sustainability. So basically it's a crisis in a way because you are actually forced by your client, and it's a big client, to actually do assessment on sustainability, right? So basically you have a crisis, then you go into sustainability. And the other part is regulatory pressure. you have the public listed company, they were asked to actually put a sustainability report. Now, everyone has actually come out at least about 3 sustainability report or 5 sustainability report, and they're quite good at it now, the public listed company. However, we don't have a sustainability report for SMEs, except if your clients are asking for it, then you actually have to do it, right? Because if you don't have a sustainability report, chances are you might lose a client. So these are the things that you need to actually do. So that's the first wave. Now, we are in between actually putting in more regulatory pressure and also looking at a influx of different areas of sustainability that you need to actually have a look. We have the perfect storm of mega issues demanding stakeholders, right? You have the NGOs, you have the communities, you have the regulatory bodies requiring you to look into sustainability. So basically, that is a requirement. So we are at that stage at this point in time. At the same time, the other thing that a lot of people don't know, there is a compelling business case to actually do into sustainability. This is what I will actually end, where we have another 20 minutes for me to actually wrap up. I will actually spend a little bit more time into doing this. Now, first of all, you need to understand a company ESG journey, right? A lot of companies, basically, every one of us, basically, we started out pre-compliance. We don't know anything. We're still polluting. We're actually using ICE engines on our cars, the internal combustion engines, right? We don't have solar panels. We are actually taking raw materials for granted without knowing how it was extracted from the mines in the first place. So this is the pre-compliance part. Now, the second part of a company, basically, is to look into compliance. Now, this is where you start doing your reports. This is where you start monitoring in terms of your energy usage. This is where you start looking into your waste. But most of the time, when we actually do this, right, we actually just to meet the regulatory criteria of the authorities. So it's never for the business part. Well, 80% of it basically is never for the business part. Basically, it's just to meet the criteria. Now, when people start looking into the compliance part, they have moved up and they begin to see some of the benefits, right? Some of the benefits of sustainability. And what happens is, when you actually do that, you have this stage of beyond compliance. You start making money, you start saving in terms of your energy, you start saving in terms of your material costs, and you begin to break into new markets because you are green. Right? People want to work with you because you have green products and you are actually monitoring. So this is where you start to make money. Now, the next stage that people are actually looking into is you go into integrated strategy. Now, integrated strategy is not one sustainability team or function that actually does the green, the sustainability part, but the whole entire organization is doing sustainability in mind, with certain in mind. Example, that you are looking into the marketing part, the aspects, basically you're producing a report and giving to all your stakeholders. You are also looking into the procurement policies. You want to actually only work with suppliers that are green, right? This is what's happening with the public listed companies. They are looking for suppliers who are actually green. Now, this is where the SMEs comes in, right? Now, at the same time, once you actually do that, you want to do more. You want to reduce your material costs. You want to actually manage your risk. You want to actually have higher employee productivity, and you want to do innovative products, right? So this is where you get into the integrated strategy, right? And why do people want to actually transition from 3 to 4? The only reason why people want to transition from 3 to 4 is you make more money. You make more money by having an integrated strategy, right? So this is why we need to actually look into the sustainability area. Now, the last one is basically you have purpose and values. Now, some companies don't even go through the first stage, the first 4 stages. They go straight to purpose and values. This is where we find the Anita Roddick of the world, the Body Shop, right? You find Patagonia, right? So those people actually started off their companies to actually be green because of the passion of the founders, right? But you do have companies that go from the integrated strategy to the purpose and values. Example, IKEA. Now, IKEA basically has actually stated by 2026, they want to be 100% either circular economy or basically they take from recycled products, right? So these are the areas that people are moving towards. Now, Microsoft has actually mentioned they are going to be carbon negative, right? Carbon negative, meaning that they will actually be producing a lot more, oxygen, I suppose, right? By 2040, I suppose. So those are the companies that are actually transitioning, looking into the purpose and values, right? So how do we do this? Now, if you look into the stages, 80%, and when we started off, right, for those who are just starting out, 80% is because of regulatory compliance, right? Now, if you look into the middle part, from the beyond compliance to integrated strategy, basically you're looking and you're trying to actually make more money. You're trying to make more profit by actually embedding a lot more sustainability strategies there. Now, at the top level, of course, basically, you're not only just actually doing very well as far as business is concerned, but you are also helping other companies to actually enabling them into sustainability. This is where we want to this is the ideal state that we want to actually have a look, right? So now, if you look at it, the stages is akin to what Malaysian CCPT stands for Climate Change Principles-Based Taxonomy. Finance companies all over Malaysia, now they have this categorization. Anyone who wants to actually put up loans, basically you have to actually fulfill one of those criteria, right? So if you don't do anything, then you are at the GP5 or GP4. We want to go higher. We want to go at GP1, right? At purpose and values, integrated strategy, and those kind of things, as per what the transition of the ESG, whereby you are also enjoying preferred rates from loan for finance, right? So this is what we are actually looking at, right? So now, how do we actually look at it, right? So if you look at some of the, I just want to very quickly, there are a lot of global case studies that actually that actually has seen major success in sustainability. One of the case closer to home, I don't want to go into too much, basically Sarawak State basically has actually gone very progressive in terms of sustainability. Last year, they actually increased the GDP by about 5 billion. Additional 5 billion from 11 billion ringgit up to 16 billion, which is huge for a state, right? We have also the corporate, this is what we're actually talking about. There are also project levels, right? Project levels whereby you look into what are the things that you can actually do to actually reduce your costs at your companies, basically. And if you look at it, basically, this is the equation which is done in 1970. So if you look at it, like I is the environment impact. If you look at population, multiply by affluence, the more affluence you have, basically the more you consume, and the use of technology. The type of technology that you use basically will actually exacerbate the impact on environment. But if you actually take this and change it a little, okay, now these are the technologies, basically high emitting manufacturing line. Now if you take this and use technology as a, denominator, right? So you can see that for those of you who are basically mathematically inclined, you find that basically you use this, then you can actually reduce the impact on the environment. So the technology becomes very important in the company. What type of technology do you use in your company to reduce your carbon emission, right? So that is basically the equation that we're looking at. Now, the other part is basically how do we manage risk? The thing is, when you actually go into sustainability, then you can actually reduce your risk of the environment. So how do we do that? Okay. I will skip this. You have this slides on your material. Now, best practice in business, basically, the easiest way to actually talk to a business person, basically, is to look into financial statements. How do you put strategies in your financial statements, right? Look at revenue, and also you have expenses. Now, in terms of strategies, for each and every column put in there, you have around about 3 major strategies that you can use to increase your revenue growth. You have around about 10 strategies to reduce your energy cost, right? Solar panel is just one of them, right? So basically, if you can actually have 100% renewable energy for your company, basically that will actually take away at least 2% to 5% of your total expense, right? And the other things, right? So all these things is basically covered. Now, basically, if you look at some of the opportunities, the type of percentages that you can actually increase from revenue and you're reducing all your expenses, basically at opportunities for the capture of revenues, you can actually increase around about 9%. You can actually reduce around about 75 to 100% of your energy cost. Mind you, this is only about 5% of your total cost, right? So you can actually have 100% cost of energy eliminated if you actually put everything on renewable. Or you can actually change your LEDs, you can change your inverter aircons, you can actually put power factor in, right? So you can also have waste costs that you can actually reduce by 20%, right? Around about 20%. Now this 20% is coming from circular economy. So if you do circular economy, you can actually reduce your raw material costs, right? So you can also have material costs. Part of it is basically looking into your waste costs. Employee productivity. Now employees, yesterday we had Mr. Ter, the IR Ter, mention that some of his new candidates are coming in and asking about sustainability. Do you have a sustainability initiative in your company? That is happening to most of the graduates now. They only want to work with sustainability companies, right? So they are more clarified. So basically productivity increased by 2%, and basically employee attrition cost basically is reduced by 25% because they got clarity in terms of there is a purpose of actually being business. You on top of that, basically you can reduce your risk cost, right? Your risk cost by 31%. And if you take your water costs and your material costs, right? Your waste costs and your waste costs, because this culminates to around about 60% of your total cost, and put it as a sustainability reserve. I mean, 50% of your savings, and put it for your next year's sustainability reserve, you end up to around about 51 to 81% of additional profit margin. Now, how do you do this? Right? How do you do this? This sounds a bit impossible, isn't it? Right? So it's a bit. So this is where we look into what are the costs, what are the ways that we actually do, and basically we have the tool which we give to you in your. Can we show the tool, please? Now, the tool is in your program materials. You can actually download it. I just want to go through very quickly, right? This is basically an Excel sheet. So if you look at it, right, you have the sample company profiles, both large and also small service company, right? Those are the sample ones. What you do is you change the revenue part. What is your actual revenue, right? You change your energy expenses. What is your expenses for energy last year? And you put your materials and water expenses. This has the most. This has the most, right? And you put your average salary, the amount that you paid for the whole year for 2023, and the number of employees that you have. Basically, it will calculate the payroll. Now, if you go into down, you have the revenue cost. Now, we put in 3 strategies for that, right? There's 3 strategies that you can actually use to increase your revenue. Now, you may have a good reputation and brand equity, and this is basically the job for the marketing and the salespeople to actually tell your clients, basically you are into sustainability. So you can change that. Can we change that revenue for it? So if you see that the amount, basically you can actually take 100%. So change to around about 20%, let's say. Or, right? Okay. Basically the amount will actually take the amount from your original part, and basically this is the additional revenue that you can actually incur. So you can actually do good company reputation, you can do innovative products, you can do employee innovative services. These are some of the sustainability practices, best practice done by over 2,000 companies. This is actually done by McKinsey, right? So you can actually put in, basically you know lah what is your additional revenue that you can actually. So you have energy costs. For example, energy saving 100%. Let's say lah, we go on a prudent side, we go 75%. That's 75%. So basically the amount will take away whatever the energy cost that you put in for last year, and this is the amount of savings that you have. And you can actually do everything dekat your risk as well. So you can actually look into your impact and probability. You can change that only in the yellow lines. The rest basically are calculated. And you go down. Can you go down, please? So you have the material cost, and this is the most. Now, if you look into the materials and wastewater cost, right? This is the most in terms of expenses that any company actually put in, around about 40% to around about 60%, more, sometimes more, right? So if you take this one at the percentage savings on materials and water and set aside for sustainability capital reserve. So it's already there. Let's say you take 50% of that one. So you take 2,000 ringgit and reinvest it in your sustainability initiative for the year after that, right? So basically, you rather than actually putting capital or budgeting capital, you are actually just taking the savings, right? So employee productivity and innovation, basically you can actually do this as well. Look into the employee engagement part. Employee attrition will actually go down. And if you look at the potential improvements, this is the original company data at 7%, right? And this is the profit increase, basically at 97%. So you can play around with this as a tool, as a guide for you as business persons, that you can, how much savings that you can actually do this with you. And again, I mentioned that this template is in the program materials. You can actually use that, play around with the numbers, and see what works for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I open for questions. Any questions from the floor?
Open the floor for questions, for Q&A. Anyone? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Mr. John Rantu from Cambodia Ministry of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation. And thank you for the comprehensive, I think this is very simplified one that every SME will need. I was wondering where this calculation come from and how, what type of indicator that they are based on. Though I think that is my preliminary question, but my important question is the calculation is not yet showing the period, the duration, or how we can convert that very practically. So this is my question, and my proposition is that whether we would like to maybe start for Cambodia where ESG is very low, so we would like to raise awareness from replication of your simplified ESG here. So would that be possible? Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, good question. Thank you very much. I forgot to actually mention. Can you just scroll down a little bit? Okay. Okay, if you look at the table over there, basically, what is the percentage that you can actually enjoy your full benefits? It takes around about 3 to 5 years that you can actually enjoy your full benefits. So basically, I put that in. So the year one, basically, you can enjoy around about 30% of your benefits. Basically, you also have around year two. But the more you do, there might be areas that you can actually do more. So basically, sort of like you can actually increase the impact or your sustainability initiatives in terms of getting your profitability. All right, so do I answer that question? Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Vibun Sithimolada from Laos. Just want to follow up on the question regarding the calculation, but you know, as we are talking MSMEs, there's a huge gap between the micro and the medium, you know, the medium-sized company. Is this calculation, you know, applied to all of those differences? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The calculation is actually taken from best practices, so around about 2,000 companies. This was actually compiled by Professor Robert Willett from Canada. So he is also one of the B Corp companies, and he actually sets the standards for Canada. Right? So he has actually put this as part of his thesis on a PhD. So this has actually been used worldwide. So it actually applies for both large as well as small companies. For the purpose of sustainability, what we want to have is basically an impact. Now, of course, we want to actually have the larger companies to actually utilize this. And basically, the more larger the company, the impact will be quite a lot, right? Okay. Any other questions?
Any more questions?
Well, if anyone wants to actually have a sideline discussion, basically, I'm always available until the middle of the day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Farid, for further outlining us on the fundamentals and importance of ESG practices. Ladies and gentlemen, we will take a 15 minutes break. It's 10:15 now. Please be back by 10:30 because we will start on time. Thank you. May I have all the participants in, please? We're going to start in 2 minutes. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last but by no means least important topic of the second part of this capacity building workshop on taking small but sure steps, titled Implementing Sustainability and ESG and Economic Benefits of Sustainability. To lead this session, I invite Dr. Sham, ESG trainer from Academy Adelphi Worldwide Edu Syndrome Berhad. Respectfully, over to you, Dr. Sham.
Okay, thank you, Norris. Okay, guys, hi, good morning. I've decided to be a bit less bourgeois by coming down. It's a bit too, interact with you in a better way and so on. So, hi, guys, I'm Dr. Sham Razak. I'm much more than a trainer. I do consulting, I do coaching as well, and things like that. Just a brief background, so I've been around for a couple of years now in this space. Had the good fortune to have worked with and had engagements with, all the way up to public listed companies right down to micro SMEs, Some of the more popular brands that I've worked with include Petronas, Maybank, SME Bank, and so on. Right, okay, so you've been listening to experts and practitioners now since yesterday. So what do you guys think so far? Easy peasy? Overwhelming? Can I have a show of hands on overwhelming? Right? Come on, the rest of you liars, come on, pick up your hands, come on. I know, right? So it's quite a bit to digest, especially if you're an SME, Perhaps if you are a large organization, MNC or whatnot, I'm guessing that your sustainability journey, I suppose, is a little bit more advanced. But we SMEs, and I'm an SME myself, in fact, I'm an MSME, right? I think we've been, it's just about to begin, or maybe some of you have, in fact, even taken the steps. So, it's all well and good to know about what the fundamentals are. It's all well and good to know about what is the business case for ESG and all that. What is the difficult part though, or rather the tough part? To get it to work for us, right? To put it into practice, It's not difficult actually, I would say it's tough for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's because it needs a bit of a mindset shift on our part, Away from business as usual, because we've been doing the business, the way that we know how, for the most part, not taking into account non-financials, because yeah, it's always been about financials now, right? And then now people come to us and say, where's your ESG report? Where's your ESG statement? So yeah, so that's that. So look, I'm going to take you through some basic steps. Yeah.